recording right away. This is a momentous occasion. Oh, here comes Shane. Oh, can't hear you now, Shelley. Hold down the space button when you talk.
Oh, so you hold it down the whole time you talk?
Yeah, you hold it down the whole time you talk.
Like a walkie-talkie.
Like a walkie-talkie. It works easier that way, so that way you get just less background noise.
Gotcha.
And here we have Shane. I don't hear Shane. He unmuted, but I still don't hear him. You're probably going to have to adjust your, Shane's probably going to have to adjust his sound. So we have Africa present in the room. That's pretty cool.
I'm here.
How are you doing, Shelley?
Doing well. Surprisingly, 11 p.m. is not as crazy feeling as I thought it would be.
So describe, go ahead.
I just don't see 11 p.m. that often.
Because everybody's asleep because there's not a lot to do at night?
Right, yeah.
Let's see, I'm not sure how we want to go about this. We don't have a huge group in there. So why don't we begin with introductions? Because that's usually what we do with a meetup. And so, Sherry, you and I haven't done a conversation that we've posted. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Shelley, me?
Yes, you.
Okay. Yes, I am living in West Africa, helping on a Bible translation project. I'm on the Discord pretty often, so I feel like probably most people will know me.
People from the Discord.
People from the Discord.
Okay. If we posted this on my channel, that wouldn't cause any trouble for you?
Oh, no, it wouldn't. Sorry, I just thought it was just going on the Discord. But yeah, no, that's fine.
Oh, we could post it on the Discord. I don't know. I haven't really made any decisions. I thought we would just do this and then see what happens.
Yeah. No, that'd be fine.
Oh, and look who we have here. This is that Andre or Andrell? He's still figuring out his sound.
Yeah, I got it now.
So why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm on the Discord. I got invited by Job actually. So I'm actually not super familiar with your videos, but I watched them now because I felt like it would almost be criminal if I joined the Discord without watching some of your videos. So and yeah, so it was through a Reddit post. So
hello.
Ooh.
Oh, Shane just figured out his sound. Okay, we hear you now, Shane. we'll let Andy keep going. Okay.
And then it was because I was irritated at the Jordan Peterson public Discord. So and then Job saw it and he sent me a message about it. So
okay. Where do you live?
I'm at the University of Maine right now. I'm a nursing student.
Oh, okay. So you're in Maine. You're in the East Coast of the U.S.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And how have you found the Discord so far?
I've really liked it. It's been great.
Good. Good. What do you like about it?
I like that you can just talk about anything.
Yeah.
I think one time I was talking on the voice chat. I was like, it's almost like an intellectual casino. You can just like go in any day, like anything will pop up, and it's just like, oh man.
That's true. That's true. All right, Shane, you're up. Who are you, Shane? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Shane. I live in St. George, Utah. I've talked with Paul once before.
We have spoken.
So I hang out on the Discord.
Okay. And well, there's 4 of us here. What shall we talk about today?
You
I
might
didn't
want
tell
to
him.
post in the Discord that it's happening again, and people will probably pop in.
Okay, I did post it in the general. Should I post it anywhere else? I would figure general would be the one that most would see. I could take a
Yeah.
screenshot and drop that in. That would get people's attention. There we go.
I mean, if you added people, but I mean, if you added everyone, but that would cause, I don't know. Well, you'd get more people from that, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm surprised Jeff isn't here. He's the one who requested the impromptu meeting.
I know. And he didn't even show. Huh? What's going on with that? Let's see. I'll just drop it in there now. There we are. So, have any of you ever participated in any other Discords?
No, I haven't. I don't do that very much on the internet, so I actually have to like research a lot of these acronyms and things that people are talking about as far as like internet culture. So no, I have not.
Okay. And Andy, you said you were on a General Jordan Peterson Discord. What was that?
Yeah. So um, it was through the Jordan Peterson Reddit subreddit.
Okay.
So it wasn't anything great. That's
Okay.
why I'm here now.
Okay.
So
What do you, I think I get the sense that people have been quite happy with this Discord server and our experience with it. This has been my first real experience with the Discord server. What do you think is going well about it?
The quality of discussion is way higher than in other Discords, like the Jordan Peterson Discord, or I'm in the Slate Star Codex Discord too, and this is better than that too.
Okay. Do you think it's a function of size?
maybe.
I think it's a function of you have to be willing to watch 2-hour videos to be interested.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I didn't know Slate Star Codex had its own Discord too. Do a lot of places have Discords?
Yeah, a lot of subreddits will have Discords, or a lot of like internet personalities will have a Discord.
Okay. Okay. Because Joey set this thing up, and I just said okay because I trust Joey, and he did it. Well, look at this 4, but actually 4 is a nice number. Well, what's interesting to you guys? I mean, I can come up with things all day, but I'd rather not be selfish. I get to talk a lot on the internet.
Tell us about your tour you're doing.
Oh, the tour. Okay, well, at this point, John Van Donk, Job, and I are setting up this tour. It was John Van Donk isn't on the Discord much. That's because I think he's a little technophobic. He's a little afraid of getting on some of these things. But John's idea was that we would take a car trip from Tucson to Vancouver. And so he was able to kind of split it up in 2 weeks where I wouldn't have to miss a Sunday at Living Stones. And we'll start in Vancouver or start in Tucson and spend at least a couple of days down there. I have my good friend Rod Hugan, who has a little church in Tucson, and there's another little group that's been going in Tucson. And Job will be coming down to Southern California for a conference. So Job will be in on all this. And so I'm going to fly into Tucson, and then we'll spend a couple of days there. Then we're going to drive from Tucson to Southern California and do a meetup probably in Chino, where John lives, probably do another meetup somewhere in LA. I can usually find spaces in churches to do that. And from there, I'll probably then fly back home to Sacramento. I think Job then has his conference that week. And then Job and John will drive up to Fresno and we'll do a meetup in Fresno. And then after Fresno, we'll have our Sunday meetup here in Sacramento. And I'm kind of thinking about doing something special in the worship service with Job and John, which will be fun. And then from here, we drive up to Salem, Oregon, where Rob Tornstra has his church. He's been on my channel, and he'd like to start a meetup. So we'll help him start. And then the next day, we drive up to Seattle, where Trip, many of you know Trip. Oh, there's Jeff. He's looking all stern. And so we'll do a meetup in Seattle, and then the next day we'll drive up and we'll do a meetup in Vancouver, someplace, Vancouver, British Columbia, and from there travel back down and probably do something in Portland, since I think a bunch of interesting people are in Portland. I'm going to see if I can set something up for that day. And so after Portland, then I head back home to Sacramento. So that's what the trip is going to look like. And John found someone who's going to pay for gas, so that's cool. And John has a Suburban, so there's plenty of room in the car. So at this point, we haven't quite figured out rides. So we'll have, at this point, it's one car, and there'll be some extra seats, and then so some people might want to take a ride from one point to the next. So we're figuring that out.
You guys are going to know each other so well by the end of this trip.
We are.
You should make a map with the arrows on it like they have in the Bible of your trip.
That's a great idea. Well, right away, Van Donk was talking about Paul's missionary journey. So Paul's fourth missionary journey. So I guess this is it. If you miss the one in the first century with Luke and Barnabas and Silas, now you get to go with Job and John Van Donk. But we're really looking forward to it, and the attraction is spending quality time with John, spending quality time with Job. I love car trips for that reason, because there you are, and it's just talk. So really looking forward to that.
I
We
can
had
probably make it to Tucson.
Yeah. What's that?
I can probably make it to the Tucson. Is that going to be like a weekend or?
That's going to be, let me pull up the calendar. I'm doing it on this computer because I have two screens here, which makes it easier. I didn't know how much controlling stuff I'd need to do. That's going to be, the meetup will probably be Monday, March 2, the evening in Tucson. And I'm still figuring out my transportation. Maybe Rod has church Sunday, March, in the evening in March. If I can figure out a way to fly from Sacramento to Tucson fast enough, it'd be fun to catch his church service in Tucson on Sunday, the 1st of March. But the meetup will probably be the March to the 2nd. We'll put out a calendar that'll have all this stuff, and then probably travel from Tucson to LA. I don't know what kind of a drive that is, the 3rd or the 4th. And then we'll have maybe a meetup in LA Wednesday the 4th. Then we'll have a meetup in Chino probably Thursday the 5th. And then I'll get back home to Sacramento probably that Friday, because Van Donk is trying to talk me into staying the weekend and preaching in his church on the 8th, if that might be possible. He's got a big church, though, and he's not in charge of it. So yeah. And then the other, Salem, Oregon, will probably be March 16. And then Seattle, Tuesday the 17th. British Columbia, Vancouver, Wednesday the 18th, and Portland, Thursday the 19th. So that's how that's shaking out at this point. Well, Jeff's taking us for a walk.
I'm just leaving work.
Just leaving work. Timing wasn't ideal. So had a very interesting, so had a setup call for the conference in Thunder Bay, Ontario, coming up in September. That's coming up the weekend of, oh, I didn't even put it on my calendar yet. That's coming up in September, late September, and that'll be Jonathan Peugeot, John Vervaeke, and myself in a place called Urban Abbey in Thunder Bay, Ontario. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. So, and Sam said he's interested in doing a Boundary Waters adventure. He's thinking about that before or after, and I was thinking, you know, if we could pull something like that off, that could be just some extended time, which is sort of like a car trip. Oh, go ahead, Shelley. Hold it down again.
No, I just don't know what that. I didn't know what that meant. Boundary Waters.
That's a whole series of lakes in Western Ontario. It's a very famous wilderness area. So,
okay. Cool.
So those are the upcoming big events that you know should be a good time. Yeah, Shane, if you could, Tucson isn't that far. Well, you're at least not having to travel way west. It's quite a ways south. Tucson gets pretty close to the Mexican border, but
It's like 7 hours.
okay. So not crazy. So, any other questions, or the time is yours, folks. Everybody's nervous when they have their face on camera. And poor Jeff is just getting off of work. He's not nervous or shy or anything like that.
I'm so nervous and so shy.
He's got the car studio thing going. Car is a great
That's
place
right.
to make videos.
Especially when you're driving.
Yes. Benjamin Boyce had that one video when he was driving.
Great.
Yeah, I learned it by watching him.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's where Freddie and I got our start too, in the car. After I did it, I thought, wow, you've got isolated sound, you've got great light. Car's really a great place to make a video.
You know, I thought about doing that, but whenever I get in my car, kids usually come up and like knock on the window and stuff, so it's not actually that great of a place to make a video.
West Africa is not North America.
Not the same.
In the DR, if I drive my car through a neighborhood, you know, you'd have kids just climbing up on the bumper, hitching a ride, and just like, oh.
Yeah, no, I'm too nervous a driver for that. I stop and I just like wait it out. I'm like, get off my car, I'm not moving again till you go.
Because they won't. You tell them to get off, they won't.
No. Nope.
So when I lived in the DR, my mother-in-law, who had been a missionary in Nigeria, came for a couple of visits, and it was very interesting how often she thought that the DR, at least the more rural area that I was in, reminded her of Nigeria. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think I've made that comment before, like undevelopment resembles undevelopment kind of across the scale.
Yeah.
It's been my experience as well. I haven't been that many other places, but I have been to some, and I'm like, wow, this feels normal.
Yep. Little Honda 70s driving all over the place, kids carrying water, people hitching rides. This way a lot of the world lives. So
Yeah,
Jeff,
well,
go ahead.
I'll give my Carlos shout out. Here, it's not Hondas, it's Mercedes-Benzes.
Really?
Like 1970s, 1980s, 1990s diesel cars are the thing here.
Well, those old Mercedes diesels, those things go a long time.
Yes. Carlos, you should be here right now. Our main connection point is I grew up on those cars, like in America. So, yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah. My dad would do some kind of conversion where he can run vegetable oil in them. So we would go to restaurants and get the used vegetable oil and filter it. And in the summertime, we wouldn't have to buy diesel for them.
Wow. And it smells like Kentucky Fried Chicken all the way driving around town.
Or donuts or whatever, wherever you went to get your oil.
So tell me about your father.
He is a mechanical engineer at American Airlines. He should retire soon. Great guy. He's got 4 kids.
Where are you in the birth order?
I am a twin, but I'm the oldest.
Oh, a twin too.
I'm 2 minutes older.
Boy or a girl twin?
Girl, we're identical.
You're identical twins.
Yeah.
Where is she and what's she doing?
She is a Spanish teacher in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
Wow. So much for the whole twin thing, doing this same parallel life thing.
We went to college together, and actually the plan was for her to be a missionary, and I would support her while I was being a nurse. And then we just kind of switched.
Wow. Do you still feel close to her?
Yeah. And with technology, I'm able to be as close to people as I want to put forth the effort to be most of the time.
What's the internet situation where you're at?
It's good, but it's not super stable. So, and it's also kind of dependent on like what's happening in the country. I don't know how the Dominican was, but like here, the government can shut off the internet anytime. So, like sometimes that happens, but when it's here, it's good.
Okay. We didn't really, the internet was just getting going when we were in the DR.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that the government can shut off the internet anytime. With a lot of smaller countries, there's not that many tubes coming in. So.
Right. Yeah. They say they do it because they don't want like protesting and riots forming and, people texting each other. So they just, I don't know how they do it, but they make it impossible. So, yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So Andy, why don't you flesh out a little bit more about yourself? How did you find Jordan Peterson and what interested you in him?
Okay. So my sister told me about Jordan Peterson. So
You got to hold.
sorry, I'm not super used to Zoom. Okay. So yeah, my sister told me about him beginning of this year. So I've only really been in this little area of the, I guess, intellectual IDW, I guess you could call it, as they call it. So I've only been here for a little bit, and I read 12 Rules for Life. I really liked it. Yeah, so I've been trying to get my sister on the Discord. She's sort of hesitant, and I don't really blame her. It's intimidating at first, I think, a little bit, but once you get into it, it's really welcoming. So.
Is your sister older or younger?
She's 3 years older than me.
Okay. And what did she like about Jordan Peterson, or didn't she?
I think she got into that sort of sphere through Sam Harris, and then she told me she tried to bring in Jordan Peterson by telling me about Joe Rogan first, because she just decided that would be the easiest way to bring it up, and so that's how. And yeah, she's not as religiously minded as I am, mostly because of Sam Harrison, his spiel, I guess.
Okay.
And,
was your house, did you guys go to church at all when you were growing up, or were your parents religious?
Yeah. I grew up Catholic. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And your sister, I don't want to force your sister's story out of you, but she wandered towards Sam Harris.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think she's an atheist. I've never actually asked her this really point blank, but I don't think she is, even if she would say that she is. I just feel like she's more of that person to not, I don't know exactly how to put it, but it wouldn't make sense for her, I feel.
Okay. Okay. And so what do you think she would get out of the Discord? What you're getting out of the Discord?
Yeah, I mean, I think she could get something out of it. I mean, for me, I've what I've gotten out of Discord would be something along the lines of I've learned. This is hard to explain. Um, I've definitely learned. I mean, with the writing channel, the server. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely learned about myself from that. Like because writing is how I like to express myself the most. I feel the hardest stuff to describe sometimes I feel is best written in like a poem or something. Um, and so I've learned about myself and, just having conversations and bouncing stuff off of people. You're bound to learn something,
Mm-hmm.
I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she could get something out of it too.
Okay.
Even if, I feel like even if you're agnostic or atheist, I think you could get something out of the Discord just by talking about anything around um, Jordan Peterson or something else, because you don't have to be religiously minded to participate in the Discord because we have a few atheists. So
Yeah. 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 Well, good. Good. Shelley, I'm a little curious because I know missionary life can be a little bit isolated. Is I mean, I don't know what your situation is like. Do you live with a group of other missionaries, or kind of out there on your own?
Yeah, I live with another couple. They live just kind of across the yard from me. We're within yelling distance of each
Okay.
other. And then about 2.5 hours away, there's like a clinic and another family. So actually, yeah, I mean, that's one reason I do like the Discord is, so I'm not a pastor, but I think you probably understand this feeling a little bit. Like if I do have something I want to like process through or talk through, it's not necessarily my like support group back in America that I'm going to be doing that with.
Yeah.
So Discord's kind of nice in that it's a group of like thoughtful strangers in one sense that I can just bounce things off of.
Mhm.
So that's actually one thing I really enjoy about the Discord. And another thing I really was just thinking about this yesterday is
Oh, there's her internet connection. When she and I tried to have a talk before, we had the same thing. Every now and then, her internet connection. Someone must be trying to organize a strike or a protest or something. So they decided to cut Shelley off.
come back.
Hope she does come back. It does get dropped. One of the odd things about missionary service too is figuring out what church attendance looks like as a missionary is odd. Pastors have sometimes some of the same difficulties. Like when I go on vacation, if I come to the church that I serve in, that's you kind of don't. Oh, yeah, we did lose her, so let's see if she comes back. So, and Jeff is still driving. I don't want to get Jeff to start talking until he's until he's safely someplace. We'll have to see how long his commute is.
I can talk and watch the road.
Okay. So Jeff, this was your brainchild. So thanks for the idea.
I got it off of something that you said. I don't know if it was in your talk with Annemiek or if it was in another one where you had mentioned you might do something like that. So that's why I dropped that question in there.
Well, I thought about it for a long time, and what's nice about the Discord server is it's a little bit more limited pool than my channel. And so I thought, well, what would happen if I just put up the link and see who shows up, and what would that look like? So
Yeah.
and
Well, I joined late, so I was just curious. I can't see. Well, certainly not while I'm driving. But how many people are on right now?
well, right now there's just 4 of us because Shelly dropped. So
Okay. So we've got Andrew, we've got me, we've got you, and who else?
and Shane.
And Shane. Okay. I don't think Shane, you or I have interacted before, but I think I've seen you post some different things sometimes. So
Yeah,
howdy.
Shane and I did have a talk, but we didn't post it. So,
Okay.
and that's about there's quite a few people out there in that group. Like I said, I probably post maybe half my conversations. So, um,
I see this one's being recorded. Is the plan to post this one?
I don't know. We'll see. The thing is, you don't get a second chance at making a recording if
That's true.
if something happens and you don't have it recorded. I noticed with a lot of the randos talks that the recording starts somewhere in the middle often.
Yeah, yeah. We're all novices at this, so we'll sometimes get started after the conversation goes, and sometimes you're like, no, we weren't recording then. Dang it.
Yeah, yeah. I find that often. So, well, any other questions or ideas you guys have? I'm very interested in how the Discord functions in people's lives, because I
I
kind of
think
jump
it's
on every.
helpful.
Go ahead, Shane.
I deal with depression, and I think it's helped.
Oh, I've never thought of it in that light. Just how is it helpful?
I think I can talk about things with people that I wouldn't talk about with people that I actually know or at my church, just because I'd be ashamed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Up, up. She's back. She's almost back.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. We lost you.
Sorry.
Oh, you explained it. That's that internet connection. Another question I had, because we're kind of talking about, Shane had mentioned how the Discord helps with depression. I was thinking about it, how it helps with isolation. What do you have in terms, because I know this was a struggle for a lot of missionaries, what do you have in terms of church life for you?
There is a church in town that I do go to. Like, I try to go 2 or 3 Sundays a month. But yeah, I mean, it's honestly more of a pouring out than a pouring in type situation. I go and I'm like, whew, done for the day. So there's the internet and online sermons, and I meet with my teammates and we pray together. So yeah.
Yeah, as missionaries, dependent a lot on the situation, but even as pastors too. Um, like when I have a vacation day, I'll usually, actually, because we have church plants in town, I'll usually go to some of the other church plants, because if I go to Living Stones on a Sunday that I'm on vacation, it's very quickly not a vacation. So,
Yeah.
so I can very see that. And I'd be a little curious too to hear from Jeff, because you're doing the pastor spouse thing, but you're the husband and not the wife. What's it usually I talk to pastors' wives and their experience. What's it like being the pastor's husband?
I have an added layer to all of it, but it's interesting because, well, the added layer for me that's a little bit different is I don't go to the same church as my wife, because when she and I met, I was a shake and bake family for her. The kids came with me. She had never been married before, so this was kind of a just add water family for her.
Wow.
And so, she was in seminary when we met, and she studied sacred music, and so after she graduated seminary, she was able to find full-time work at a church that was about an hour and a half from where I was living at the time, and she and I weren't married at the time, and we lived separately. And so she eventually found a job that was much closer to me and much closer. It's actually in Dallas proper, and that's where she's been working for the last several years. And all that time, me and my kids had been going to a different church, a different denomination for the better part of a decade. So that was the church, for all intents and purposes, that my kids had grown up in. And so that's the one that I and my daughter continue to attend. My son, he's an adult now, living on his own, and he's moved out of the house. So, we're kind of we're living different church lives. And one thing that I told her not long ago was, whenever our daughter graduates and wherever she ends up going, whatever she ends up doing, I'm not necessarily sure that I will have a church. I will kind of feel church homeless, because I don't necessarily feel drawn to her denomination, and I have problems with, some of the things in my own church, and they're not necessarily problems that would just force me out of the church, but I still feel I feel homeless to a certain extent.
Hmm.
I started attending some. They have weekly classes after every service, and it's called like a growth track or a next steps kind of thing, and it kind of just introduces people to. We have a new lead pastor, and so this is one of his programs to kind of help introduce some of the new attenders to, hey, here's how you become a member. Here's how you get involved in the church. And the only way to actually become a formal member is you have to attest to some confessional articles of faith.
Right.
But you can still be involved at the church. You can still be a regular attender and not be a member, and you can still volunteer in different parts of the church and things like that. And so there were certain things in the articles of faith where it's just, I can't honestly say that I attest to all of these. There's like 18 to 20 things that were just part of the denomination.
Mm-hmm.
And, I sent a message to the pastor and asked him about it. And, some of my questions were, well, are you guys saying that this is the only way that I can be a member of the body of Christ to attest to these things? And he says, oh, no, absolutely not. That's not what that means at all. And, so there's just a little bit of pull there. I mean, I'm not surprised in any way. I'm just looking to figure out how I can be a part of a local body that is within a denomination, but even ones that are outside of denominations have certain articles that say you have to. Some of the things in the articles of faith are a little too conservative for me, but some of my wife's church are a little too liberal for me. So it's just like I don't know where I sit. I've told her, I said, I don't know what to do when there are certain things, that just really aggravate me to the point of not wanting to go to that church anymore that I hear in the sermon, whether it
Hmm.
be a conservative thing or whether it be a liberal thing where I come and visit my wife's church. And my wife is not the lead pastor. She's the director of worship, and there is a lead pastor who delivers, the majority of. And every once in a while, there'll a woke religion thing thrown in there. I'm just like, eh. And then, at my church that I go to, there will be something that's just, I don't know. It just feels very. I hate it when things are framed as, well, this is what being Christ-like is, and then I see that the things that this particular pastor is saying are Christ-like just happen to conveniently line up with a political party. And then I go to the other church another week and, no, this is what Christ-like is, and it's the opposite of what the pastor that I heard the other week say, and it happens to line up with the opposite political party. And I'm just like, I'm just so confused. Which one of you is Christ-like and which is not? Because these two things are diametrical. And so that just really gets under my skin. It just means that I'm too political, I think.
Well, but I mean, this raises. So this morning, here's my bottle of water. This morning, I was working with John Van Donk, who I was talking about earlier, because John Van Donk has been a partner in crime with this thing for me ever since he wasn't really there at the start of making videos, but once I started doing meetups, and I knew John Van Donk through CRC Voices. And, one of the things that he and I are working on, he goes to a large Christian Reformed church that is fairly evangelical-ish in terms of their orientation. They got a few hundred people that come to worship. They have a worship pastor who's a really wonderful guy who John and I both like and are friends with. But the approach is very big box evangelical. And John Van Donk is a guy who used to be a pastor, and some of his, so he, um, you know, left the ministry, had a divorce, raised his daughters, got remarried. You can listen to his story, it's on my channel. But he's one of these people that, you know, he's got a lot of ideas. He's got education of a pastor. He's well read. Doesn't fit necessarily very easily into churches. It's almost like churches have lots of ideas that, the more points that the church has that you have to align with, the more possibility there are for dissent and so on and so forth. And of course, this stuff spreads out to denominations. So one of the things that John really wants to do is start a meetup in his church. And it's connected with Jordan, sort of connected with Jordan Peterson, because he started his meetups that way. But now we're working on a Google Doc together. He just highlighted the whole thing. I hope he doesn't erase it. But so we were talking this morning and talking about a Conversations on the Edge group, and this is for, have you lost status in your community because of something you believed or something that you're not prepared to say you believe? That second part was John Van Donk's contribution to it. So there's a lot of this working out in church, and even in your situation, Shelley, where the fit between you and, say, a church down the road, there's lots of layers to that fit. There's your your ethnicity, your cultural background, your economic level, your opportunity. When I was in seminary, there was a guy named Viv Grigg who started a missionary movement of living among the poor. And I remember he came to Calvin Seminary and gave a talk about that. And I bought his book, about a couple of his books. And, you know, as a seminarian, I was just so enamored by that thought of, okay, you're going to go, it was in the Philippines actually, you're going to go live in the squalor of the Philippines, and you're going to be just like the nationals. And I remember the missiology prof just kind of smiled because he had been a missionary and he knew. I mean, because here's the thing, one of these nationals gets sick, they might die. You as a missionary get sick, guess what? Right out to some North American or some European or some well-developed hospital. That none of the nationals have that option or that possibility. So, you know, there's tons of these issues going on. So, you know, Jeff, I really appreciate your, um, I just really appreciate you. That's what I've been so impressed by so many people on this channel, your willingness to tell your story, because you can lose status amongst people with stories like this. Why doesn't Jeff come to his wife's church? Why doesn't Jeff's wife come to his church? Usually if there's a job, people will sort of respect the job difference, um, but these are, and then, you know, people looking for a church. Okay, I'm interested in Christianity, I want to find a church. I like this church, but this church has women pastors. This church doesn't have women pastors. This church affirms same-sex relationships. This church doesn't affirm same-sex relationships. These are Calvinists, they have ideas about predestination. These are Arminians, they think we choose God and not God choose. I mean, it just goes on forever. So there's a little rant for you. Ginger Bill, we haven't had an introduction from you, and I've seen you in the Discord plenty, so I'm a little bit curious about you.
Hello, can you hear me?
I hear you just
Oh,
fine.
it's very wonderful. Yes,
So
it's
you're
wonderful.
from the UK.
Yes, I am.
Where in the UK?
From the Midlands, Leicester. That's where I'm from.
Okay, you're gonna have to pardon my ignorance.
Do you know where Nottingham is?
Yeah, sort of.
Round back near there.
Okay. And how did you find the Discord?
Well, I've been watching you for about 2 years, and when I noticed the said, "Oh, we've got Discord on," I was straight on it like a car bonnet. So yeah.
Straight on it like a car bonnet. I love that. So how did you find me?
Through a friend actually. There's on also Discord is Florian on there. I've been good friends with him for a few years, and because we were both friends of Jonathan Mageau. You know, good viewers of that. We enjoyed watching him. Stories. I got that one was there, and they said, "Oh, you might like this Paul Vanderklay chap." I went, "Okay, I'll give him a watch." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I really like the chap." And I went, "Oh, he does all this Jordan Peterson stuff as well." I went, "Oh." It's kind of like that. So we kind of got sucked in that way. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Single, married, what do you do?
I'm single currently. As a job, I'm actually a physicist. My current is my main profession. Just kind of got a new job, which is very nice. I used to be in academia and I quit that, but now I've gone to actually do a normal job and I'm much better at that.
What's a normal job?
Working with my hands anyway, rather than actually working on papers.
Lovely.
Yeah. So I've been doing that for now about 4 months now. It's been very good fun.
Okay. Do you get a chance to listen to YouTubes and stuff while you're working with your hands?
Yeah. I usually just having it on the background. I've bought myself some of those wireless headphones, so while I'm working, I can always have them on. It's brilliant.
Wonderful.
But yeah, well, probably if you have talked about the general stories, that's kind of the general gist of this thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's how we get to know each other.
A
A little bit, at least.
Probably put on the webcam. It's not a very good webcam, but it's that. There we go.
Oh, wonderful! That picture makes things so much better.
Yes, it does. Hopefully, there we go. Oh, it's not a very good camera, but it's not bad actually today. So I shouldn't be so bad.
It's not bad at all. It's got to be pretty late by you.
Yeah, it's about 10 to midnight. Unfortunately,
same
I had
with
a nap
Shelley.
earlier.
Same time zone.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah. So the thing is, I should be stating, I'm still an agnostic, even though I've been watching you and Jonathan Peugeot for the past 2 years. I don't know how to explain that.
It's the elephant in the rider. So
Yeah, it's the
you
elephant
don't choose
rider.
your beliefs.
No, I don't choose my beliefs. I know that very well, very well. I've kind of come to notice that over the past few years, like, oh, that's something I didn't realize. It's like something like, oh, that's what my political beliefs are. Oh, I didn't realize that, even though I've held them for years. Stuff like that.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that a
Yeah, I
funny
know.
thing?
It is. It's really bizarre. Like, I remember when I was in university, and I thought I was left wing because I didn't like the Conservatives. That was my logic. No, didn't work out that way. And I was like talking to my mates who were left wing. I'm like, wait, what? So that's how I was kind of figuring out. Oh, wait, they know my politics. So it's one of those weird things where you don't realize what you don't know.
Yeah.
It's good fun, but yeah, stuff like that. So then, just been going through and realizing that. So it's kind of been a good journey. I have to blame you for I've been reading loads of C.S. Lewis.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I've probably got about a dozen of his books now. So,
oh my. So what do you think of Job? It was so funny when Job started reading C.S. Lewis because he didn't really like him. That was so much fun to listen to.
We were in the same boat for a long time. Now he's just got off the ship. It's like, yeah, why did you do that, Job? But yeah. No, but yeah, I've been very much enjoying C.S. Lewis. When I read Miracles back in April, that book has still been in my head for months. And the argument isn't actually a complete argument, I found out. It's a really, really good argument. It's not complete.
Okay, say more.
The reason why is I was reading through and when I was first read, I couldn't find any flaw with the argument. I went, oh fuck, sorry to mind my language, but yeah, it was one of those like I couldn't see anything wrong with it. But then I realized, the only thing it does get wrong with it is it chucks out reductive materialism. So that reductivism is chuck out. It doesn't necessarily get rid of non-reductivism. So emergentism is another way people would call it. But then I'm like, when you think about emergentism, it's like, huh? So how does that work? And I know this. I do have like bottom-up thinking. That's how I normally think all the time. And these things merge anyway, and how things interact. And I see that all the time in like engineering physics. That's a very big thing that pops up all the time. But then you think, so wait, but how does that happen? How do you have something that's conscious that observes the world and can reason and do all this and just emerge from all these natural properties? Like, that's just something that just seems like magic to me. Like my woo sensor goes off in my head.
Well, it's like a rule said. He said, I remember where he said, emergence is just basically, it's essentially a magic word.
Yeah, it is. It's more like, it just emerges out of this. And I'm like, I understand why certain emergent properties happen, but they're only emergent because it's like the rules are actually very basic and they pop out. You know what the rules are, so you can know why it emerges. But this doesn't know.
Right. We don't know why it emerges. We just say it does, and we say it does without purpose.
It's kind of interesting to see. It's like, again, listen to loads of you and speaking with everybody here. It's been really good fun. But it's just finding out like, okay, that's a lot of assertions that people make, and they just assert it. There's no reason why you'd believe X, Y, and Z. It's just true. I'm like, but why? It's really interesting. Like, just speaking with the new atheists all the time. I've never been a new atheist. I say I've been an atheist. Yeah, technically I am, but I don't know. I say that. The weirdest thing is, many people already know, I go to a monastery every Sunday for mass. Which is, even though I say I don't believe in God, explain that one. I've never been religious in my life.
So we have Jeff, who struggles with church, Shelley, who struggles with church. Andy, do you go to church?
Regularly. Yeah, I do. I missed the last 2 Sundays, so.
Oh.
But for a little bit, I wasn't going because I was like, nah, I need to try and. I guess I was trying to figure out something. I think I might have found the answer, but you never really know, it seems like. And yeah, I've been Yeah, but I've been trying to be consistent about it, but
Catholic Church?
Catholic, yeah.
Okay.
A university. The university has a Catholic church, so.
Okay. Okay. And Andreas is here. This is a very famous man. He is one of the he's one of the firsters. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so.
You're right up there with Vixen Dixon for some of the top spots.
Yeah.
He was also the first, if I remember correctly, Job Discord conversation that just did not get recorded. Is that right? Or am I remembering that wrong?
That is also true.
So you have status in this community.
Yeah. Only have to talk to Job, then you get status.
He's the gatekeeper. He's the pastor of the Discord.
This is true. You talk to
Yes.
Job and you get status.
That's right. You talk to Job.
I think I'm also the one who made Job the pastor. So.
Well, isn't that convenient? You make him pastor, you give me status. Sounds like something you hear about out of West Africa. You know, sounds like corruption. So Andreas, we know some of your story. Now you live in Germany?
Yes.
Okay, and you're a faithful Catholic.
You could say that.
What's with the hesitation?
Well, I would say I have no trouble believing with my mind, though the believing with the heart is still a problem to an extent.
What do you mean by that? Say more about that.
I don't act as if I believe often times.
Okay. And you're gonna have to flesh that out too. That's too interesting.
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Yeah, well, you jump in, you're gonna be. I'm gonna talk to you.
Wait, just let me see if I can get my webcam working. So this will be even more awkward.
Ooh, the unmasking.
Dum dum dum.
I actually don't know how I connect it to the Zoom.
If you
so-
move the mouse, the controls will pop up at the bottom. There's a little up arrow next to stop video. Then you just select your webcam. Or if stop video has a red line through it, click on that and your webcam will come on.
Yeah, I don't have a webcam. I'm experimenting actually with using my phone as a webcam. I've never worked that out. So,
Okay.
well, maybe get back to your question. What do I mean by that?
Yes.
Well, I accept all, let's say, the doctrines. I accept that God exists. I accept that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. It's something that I accept. I think it's highly likely, and I think the whole Christian story makes just sense because it lets the world click.
Hmm.
It just brings a lot of sense into the world.
But living it out is what you're struggling with.
Yes.
And what about living it out do you feel if I don't want you to back you into disclosing anything private or sensitive here, but what about living it out? What would be an example of some living it out that you don't feel you're doing?
For example, I tend to become very tribalistic.
Politically or religious?
Religiously, very things. If I disagree with something, and I know it is normal, but it's yeah.
So your Roman Catholicism is getting in the way of being a good Christian.
I wouldn't say that. No, no, I never would say that. That's my Roman Catholicism.
Of course, you couldn't say that if your tribalism is getting in the way.
well, my conditions on believing the one thing also are the same conditions that make me believe that I have to be Catholic. So
Boy, that's interesting. So are you a faithful attender? You go to mass every week?
yes.
Okay. Well, that would go along with the. Oh, that's interesting. Well, although needing forgiveness for not being the Catholic that you think you should be could drive you to mass every week, so that's actually not a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I don't. It's hard to describe. Like so.
So how did you first find my channel? Jordan Peterson
Well,
stuff?
yeah, of course, Jordan Peterson stuff. I mean, I told the story to Job once. Like, I started watching Jordan Peterson. Like, I first saw Jordan Peterson on the H3 podcast.
Okay.
Which was also a weird story because it's just one of the podcasts I listen to while playing games because it's good to have something on.
Mm-hmm.
And I ignored it for most of the time because I didn't know the person and I wasn't interested.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hadn't anything better to listen to, so I just let it run. And then there was this guy on who was talking about really interesting stuff, and also started talking about weird about personality traits and something, and kind of shook my system in a way when I heard him start talking about neurotic people.
Oh.
Because before I had a sense of that not that there was something wrong with me, more like that that there was something unique, not in the positive sense. And in a way, yes, we all are something unique, but
Mm-hmm.
but he was talking about stuff I think like that something many people has, and he started talking about things that somebody could do against that, like and that's the point where I was like where I had to stop the whole podcast because I had to make like the decision if I wanted to hear what he has to say.
Wow. Obviously, you pressed forward.
Obviously, I did.
You took the Jordan pill and moved forward.
Exactly. I was totally red pilled at that moment. For a while, I was super red pilled.
Uh-huh.
I got better. Then, well, yes, and then I watched all the Peterson stuff, the usual.
Yep.
And I was really interested. I watched the biblical lectures, which is his most interesting lectures, I would say. And I mean, I was raised Catholic, so I did have some connection to religion and Christianity. And somewhere there had been this disconnect between what I was raised in and what the world was telling me was right and wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is also goes to my shame, actually, because I didn't put in the effort to learn more.
And this fits in with the rest of the pattern of how you were describing yourself too. This dissonance sort of between two sides. It sounds like Peterson sort of helped bring, at least narrow the gap between those sides.
Yeah, I could say that. I mean, well, yes, he brought me more into focus, I would say, like more into unity. Well, it was only this. It was the start of that process, which eventually led me to you, because after the biblical series, which I listened to, and I thought, wow, I never thought you could get at the Bible from this perspective. I mean, I didn't understand. I always had an interest in stories and something, but I never couldn't quite grasp why stories were important to me or to anyone else.
Mm.
And John Peterson started talking, like he said, he was talking about, like he always says, like when people say he's talking about stuff we somehow already knew,
Mm-hmm.
but could never put into words. And that's exactly what he did. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I basically have had no life experience actually. So, and still sometimes some people were calling me wise once. And I wondered, where does that come from? Where does that come from? Because I was always interested in stories, and I could see, I could see those patterns in the stories and could abstract them. I mean,
Oh.
me being raised Catholic also has something to do with that, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I am a Catholic even if I believed that I wasn't. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's what I would say.
And so your culture and your religious upbringing afforded you a level of wisdom that you hadn't even earned and didn't even know you had earned,
Yeah,
but
I
yet
have a
you
lot of
had.
unearned wisdom.
That's good. That's good. So what have you're on the Discord a lot too. What have you found on the Discord that's helpful for you?
I would say community first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Also a place to share my story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's really hard to get a slot with you.
Well, I'll the slots, basically what I'm doing now with the slots is that I look ahead on my calendar, and if I have room, I've got everything closed, and then if I have room, I open slots. And so they'll open up at times. There's not going to be a lot in December because I got a vacation coming up, and then I've got holidays, so I don't really know at the end of the month. But they sort of open up like Jesus' second coming. There's nobody knows when they're going to open up. I just open them up and people jump in. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I also don't look regularly, I wanted to say. So
You also don't. Oh, you don't. Well, it's
so
kind of hard to find them if you don't look regularly. But no, but you do have an interesting story, and that's. I'm just, my whole project is trying to figure out this whole thing. What on earth is happening in the world? And all of you sharing your stories are helping me figure that out. Any of you, I don't want to dominate the conversation too much. Any of you have questions? Well, you all have access to each other on a fairly regular basis. But now that you're talking live, any of you have questions for each other?
Putting it on the spot here. It's one of those things where do this, and I'm like, freezing. I'm trying to think now. I'm just thinking, again, me and Shelley have a lot, I guess, but we just never actually probably spoken face to face before, I guess.
I think part of this, and I think, I mean, Shelley is such an interesting situation because you're living in the undeveloped world, but you are a developed person, if we just use those as categories. And I think part of what I recognize, part of what development has meant is isolation. And and the internet is sort of compensating for the isolation.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a dilemma for me a little bit because about 5 hours of my day is working on like the translation. But then a part of my job also is to be with people here. But honestly, it's way more fun and easy to be with people on Discord. So I gotta like figure out my balance of life and be responsible with my time. Because I'm actually like making my own schedule and I'm not actually accountable to someone. No one's looking over my shoulder asking me how many hours a day I worked,
Yep.
So that's been an interesting development with Discord for me.
Ooh, that's something we can start asking you on the Discord. We'll start looking over your shoulder.
Accountability. Yep.
That's such a tricky thing. Now, how long have you been there, Shelley?
Well, I got here in 2013, and I've been here on and off. You know, they had the Ebola crisis, so I was home for about 15 months then. So it's been something like 6 years around.
Okay. So you're not a newbie. You're not a because often what we'd often do with first time missionaries, we just kind of throw them in the deep end because you don't want them having too much North American experience. They don't learn the language, they never learn the culture, but you're not in that boat. You know quite well the place that you live.
Yeah, well, yeah, any like possible honeymoon period is over. I don't know that there was one. There was one, but it is still, I mean, it's still way easier for me to speak English than Konyanke. So just as far in terms of like energy level, like, well, do I leave my house and go speak, you know, my second or third language, or do I stay in my house on my computer and speak my first language with people who are funny? I don't know.
Well, and people you have a lot in common with people. It's less effort to and again that missionary I mean, with missionaries, it's a really sensitive thing because, like it or not, you will never be one of them,
Yes, true.
and that's a difficult thing. And I've seen missionaries along the spectrum,
Yeah.
and because in a sense, you're there to do a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I would say my first term, I had unrealistic expectations in that regard. You know, we talked a lot about incarnational ministry and living like them and being among them and being one, but no, I'll never be an insider. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's very true.
yeah, yeah. And for many of the rest of us living in the developed world, there's a degree of isolation. Um, you know, especially when it comes to church, it seems. And figure, I mean, that's certainly true of Jeff's story. Um, you know, I know Shane and I have had some conversations there. You know, Shane has some issues around that, although he has a very good relationship with the church that he really enjoys. Um, Andreas is very loyal to his church, enough so to feel guilty about his imagined lack of performance with respect to that church. Oh, I didn't close the room soon enough. We have another celebrity in our midst.
Was that particularly directed towards me, Paul?
That was directed totally towards you, Luke.
Oh my goodness. Oh no.
Well, you need very little introduction,
He's
because
the star of Randos United, ladies and gentlemen.
there he is, Luke Thompson himself in the
Yeah.
flesh, and
Well,
really
kind of.
really got. I mean, it's funny because certain individuals were pretty important in terms of me doing what I'm doing, and Luke is one of them. Luke was he was in there pretty early, and you know, Luke and I had, you know, some of the early conversations, and so yeah, and Luke is all over the place. Luke's on this podcast and that podcast. If Luke could
Yeah.
make money at this, well,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a pretty big deal. I know Preston. That's it, essentially. Uh-huh.
oh,
How many people are in here?
right now we have 8 of us.
Oh, well, that's not overwhelming.
Now, I was worried about overwhelming too, but we were just talking about isolation, and you're a stay-at-home dad,
Well, yeah, speaking my language.
and you know, and one of the things I noted on CRC Voices, you know, which was obviously listservs before all of this, I thought a lot of the pastors on CRC Voices and a lot of the non-pastors on CRC Voices were people who were kind of sort of out at the periphery somewhere. And So the internet as a vehicle for alleviating loneliness, depression, and in some ways, all of this probably another layer to that.
Yeah, well, that's what Twitter was that for me, really. From when I first got on, I mean, I don't know, I signed up for Twitter in like 2009, but I never really used it until, I don't know, at some point really when it was just feeling isolated. I just had no one I could talk to about things that I um, think about and cared about, and which is interesting now a little bit because like this community in the Discord is almost like a, you have to be careful because it's like you can get that fix in the Discord anytime. Everyone's interested in everything that I'm interested in. And so it's a challenge sometimes, or it can be. If I have free time, I'm just like, is this how I should spend my free time right now? I don't know. But
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of what I meant by the how it's like an intellectual casino. That's sort of what I meant by it. Because sometimes I get like stuck in here for like an hour or two, and I'm like, I should have been doing homework, but but I decided to talk to some people on the internet. No big deal.
An intellectual casino. That might be the show title. Discord server as intellectual casino.
that's a good. Did you come up with that? Or did you
That's
hear that?
Andy.
Andy, yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, that was my.
It is very
I was
addictive.
trying to figure out why I would spend so much time on the server. I was like, oh, this is why.
But yeah, it is kind of a temporary fix in the way that I should be very clear about it anyway, and I shouldn't be very explicit either. I think Discord kind of helped me a lot when I was at my previous job working in the university, because the main reason I quit it because I found it meaningless. There was no meaning to it. Every day I would go in and I'd do pretty much nothing every day. I'd be sitting there twiddling my thumbs because I couldn't do any work, even though I wanted to do work. And so the only work I could do would be on Discord chatting to people and talking about things and stuff. Because again, all the politics means you couldn't do things, all the bureaucracy, and even when you did it and when you could do stuff, it was like all the people were lovely, and I do not want to insult people. I really don't. Like, everyone was lovely. It was just like I couldn't understand why it was so badly organized. It was like, how's this so? How? It was kind of really annoying me, like the way especially I thought, and it was just like I couldn't see any meaning to it. So it kind of, you get stuck in your own brain for about a while, and you get kind of bad thoughts, and you kind of go into nihilism because of it. It's not very good. So you kind of feel that emptiness, and you think, it's all meaningless, isn't it? Why am I doing this? It's one of those things. So the Discord's kind of helped in that regard, but it felt always like a temporary fix. It's like, you need that, get there, whatever it was, the drink or whatever people do. I don't know.
No, I think that's a good point. And I don't know, Paul, have you? I mean, you were talking about that in the recent talk with Hank and Joey and Sam. I mean, do you really? And I mean, I think you mentioned this, but do you see just kind of baseline? I mean, the local meetups is kind of the goal, right? I mean, would you say that you see this as a temporary? This is like a Band-Aid.
I don't know if it's a Band-Aid. I think it's, yeah. The local meetups are the goal, and any community via something like this is obviously secondary. So, and yeah, I don't know how to say it, but
Yeah.
I don't want this displacing it yet. We obviously don't want this to become something that takes away from family, marriages, churches, I mean, any of that.
Right.
But at the same time, as Shane mentioned, helps with depression. Well, why? It's because you can talk to people, and by virtue of a variety of circumstances in our lives, we're not always able to talk to people. And talking with Shelley, thinking about the developing world and the developed world, one of the things that happens in the developed world is isolation, and there's a lot of pieces to that. So see, now we've got I'd see at some point, so this whole thing is an experiment too, and at some point I think, at what point do I lock the room and lock people out? Is there a number that we limit this to?
I keep inviting people, so don't lock it yet.
Well, at some point I'm gonna have to go. This is my family movie night. I just popped in to just be like, oh, well, I'm gonna see what's happening. I mean, obviously I'd love to chat, but I have my actual physical embodied life here to live,
Well, we certainly don't want to take away from your family, Luke, but I'm glad you could grace us with your presence.
Yeah, right. Well, it's so fun to see people's. I just am scrolling through here and I'm seeing there's Iron Root. I had a great conversation with Iron Root today. Say something. Make yourself big.
I'm pretty big on Dutch, so.
Oh, nice.
Get that one going.
You can also change to the from speaker view to the
gallery view.
The gallery view.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
And you get to see all of our beautiful faces at once.
Well, your voice is amazing.
Voice.
Yeah, I actually used to do radio when I was younger. I used to do it after school and stuff. I used to do the drive time show. The guy used to do it on. He used to do Northern Soul, which none of you would know what that is. But it's an old, from 70s Northern England soul music. It's quite nice. It was a lovely chap I used to do it with. Unfortunately, I had to stop doing it because they said, "Oh, can you try and do it at 12 o'clock?" So I said, "No, I was still at school." No. So it was like they kept trying to tell me, "Can you do this time?" So I went, "No." So I kind of said, "Oh, I'll just have to quit then." I enjoyed it. Yeah, so I know I hate my voice, but I'm stuck with it every day. So probably that's why I hate it.
Why do you hate it?
I guess I'm stuck with it. You hear it all the time. It's like when you hear things all the time, grating.
You have a beautiful voice.
I think it is nice too. Sam and I were just talking about that in our future to be posted randos chat.
Sorry, I have an embodied life too.
No, dude. I'm not saying, I'm not blaming you for that. I'm just, you can't keep up with how many conversations come at you.
All right, I want to do some more introductions now. So Iron Root, welcome. Good to see you in the flesh.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm still Pixel, so sorry.
Well, yeah, Pixeled. Well, give us a little introduction to you, just a little brief one, just 1-2 minutes.
Well,
here folks kind of know who you are, but if we post it,
I'm that icon that's on Discord all the time. So I guess you've seen that one around. But I fixed my sleep schedule, so your Americans are gonna have to miss me in the evening. So yeah,
what do you do for a living?
I don't do anything for a living. I'm struggling with, I hope, recovery from depression and energy issues, and trying to get that going.
Okay.
I'm partially fixing my worldview, and think talking to people on Discord really was helpful in getting access to a different way of being than I was stuck in. So that is really good. But yeah, now I'm trying to figure out how to integrate that in real life, which is really really a lot harder for me than it should be. So yeah, that's basically me, and yeah, I'm on a positive trajectory, but I'm not really hopeful yet, or I guess I'm hopeful, but I'm not really trusting that it will end up in a good place. So
what do you need to do next?
Well, I need to integrate activities, and one of the things I've done
is I've contacted a volunteer organization in and we're gonna try and end up like having relations to the younger people in our area, which struggle with sense making. At least that's like the idea we're trying to articulate something around. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, but I don't know how that's gonna turn out, and if I even have the energy to sustain such an activity.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Let's see, Andrew. We got a lot of Andys, Andreas, and Andrew. You popped your head up. You want to say anything, Andrew? I'm just going by the name I see on the screen. Maybe he can't hear us. Maybe still working on his
If
sound.
that's Andrew
Yeah.
K, he said on Discord he's struggling to get it working. I think he says he cannot hear anything.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we will. Let's see, Michelle. I've talked with Michelle. He's gonna. There he is. Nope.
No, I'm right now in driving.
Oh, okay.
With my son.
We'll let you drive. And Michael, I've had a number of talks with, and he's had a number of talks over on Karen's channel. He might be driving too. Still trying to figure out how this can work. Now we've got 12 in, which is quite a bit more. Are you at your desk?
People are on African time here.
Can you talk, Michael, or are you going to listen?
Yeah, I can chat a little bit. I was actually making dinner, but yeah, I found out about this late. I think Jeff just posted something on our little box chat to remind us that this was going on. So I'd forgotten about this.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, if you're making dinner and you want to listen, that's fine too. We were talking about the internet and isolation and the Discord server, and whether opening the Discord server would be helpful and not harmful. Dalamard.
Yes.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Peter. I'm the other icon that everybody sees on the voice chat channel all the time.
Okay. Where do you live, Peter?
I live in Reykjavik,
Iceland. Cool. It always sounds so exotic to an American. Maybe America sounds exotic to you.
Well, we have a saying here which is often used about things which are exotic, which is white sand, which should tell you a lot. The sand here is typically black.
Oh. So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe why you're on the Discord all the time.
I'm a warehouse worker. I normally want to listen to something or take part in some conversation. My schedule all messed up because my wife lives in the US and I spend most evenings talking to her. So I go to sleep immediately after work. I wake up and stay up all night with her.
Oh. What does your wife do?
She's a nurse.
She's a nurse. Okay. How does that work? You being in Iceland and her being in America and being married, what is that like?
Not good for your sleep schedule, I can tell you that.
How did you meet?
I met online.
Okay. Okay. And is it jobs that are keeping you apart, or
dwelling permits. I'm moving to the US next summer.
Oh, okay. Congratulations. Where in the US does she live?
She lives in Houston.
Okay. That'll be a big change from Iceland.
Very much so. The typically coldest winter nights there are about as warm as our warmest summer nights, so the summer days. So
And the humidity.
yes.
So, okay. And how did you find the Discord server?
Just by watching your videos.
Okay, okay. And you found my videos by watching Peterson?
Yeah.
And why did Peterson grab you?
I was doing a little search of like, basically I disconnected from the news for a couple of years, and all of a sudden everything seemed to be going haywire when I started watching international news again. So I started looking into the political angle of it, followed by the economic angle, followed by the sociological angle, and it was just a logical progression.
Okay, okay. And Peterson, he made it to Iceland, didn't he? Or not?
Yeah, he came here. I did not go to his thing. I think I was in the US at the time.
Okay, okay. All right. And so what do you get out of the Discord? Companionship, basically?
Companionship, like thinking things over, articulating thoughts I have. Those are the things that I mostly get out of it.
Okay. Oh, hey, now we get to see. It's so much better when we get to see you.
Yeah, I was not figuring out why the webcam wasn't working until I realized my testing thing.
Okay, okay, okay. No, the visual is so much of an addition. It really is, because I see a number of your names on the Discord, and I'm not on the Discord. Probably, I don't know. It's just between everything. I usually drop on once a day or so, do some skimming, maybe drop in something or. And Andrew, do you got your sound working? Oh, you can do sound.
Hello?
There, we hear you.
All right.
You got it working. You're the famous
Sweet.
Andrew K.
I'm famous, huh?
You are now.
Oh, sweet. Am I the youngest one in this group? I'm 21.
Andy?
I have you beat, guaranteed. 18.
18.
I don't know what
He's
he
got
said.
you beat.
18, huh? Oh, okay. Oh,
So
that's
where do
right.
you
I
live,
think I
Andrew?
saw I'm from New Jersey.
Oh man.
Where in New Jersey?
Middletown.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, right. That's right in the middle. You didn't know.
All right. Well, it's a good name. So
It's pretty fitting, yeah.
south of Patterson, which is fairly to the north, but New Jersey is a small state.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Okay. And you found your way to what do you like about the Discord?
I like all the questions I get to ask because I've met another group of people who I've become very good friends with that I used to discuss these kinds of things with pretty often, but I've kind of become so good friends with them that now whenever I present some kind of question or discussion, it just kind of turns into a big joke. So now I can actually have really serious and useful conversation with people that have a very wide range of ideas regarding religion, which is very cool.
Okay. So the other people sort of, you have the mapped and the unmapped territory, and they've totally mapped you now. And so now you have a group that is a little bit less mapped.
Yeah, right. Pretty much.
Okay. Okay. And what kinds of questions do you ask?
I've been asking a lot of questions. It differs from day to day, but sometimes I'll ask questions about the faith I was raised with, which was Catholicism, and sometimes I'll just ask questions about the Bible in general. A lot of the questions I used to ask about Catholicism had to do with certain aspects of it that were confusing to me, because I'm sure there's a lot of pretty common things that people find in the Bible that they point to Catholicism and say, why do you do this? And it says right here, you're not supposed to, like, you know, you're not supposed to call anyone on earth your father or something, but then why would you call your own dad your father? It's kind of weird. There's a lot of stuff like that that I would just, you know, it's kind of confusing, and I'm pretty sure I might understand that, you know, I call my own dad father, so why is that a big deal? But I would still ask those questions just to really get a better idea of, you know, am I okay with this? Am I not? And after a long time, you know, Carlos M is always on there. He's that Catholic guy who's always been telling me about the faith, and I think he's pretty much convinced me to go back to it. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, Carlos doing work in the Discord.
He's doing a lot of
Wow.
work. Yeah.
I'm a Protestant. Maybe I have to lock him out.
Yeah, maybe. Pulling people away from your side.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, Carlos is a pretty passionate apologist.
That's right. Yeah. But the great thing about the Discord is that although I get to hear stuff from Carlos about what my faith is supposed to be in that section of Christianity, I also get to hear about what everyone else thinks about the faith as well. And that, I think that gives me a much better idea of what I should really be believing. Like, I really like listening to Jonathan Pajot's stuff, despite him being Orthodox and not Catholic. I really like hearing all the symbolism and stuff. And I bought his brother's book. I'm reading it right now. Okay. Because it gives me a whole different perspective on everything I'm reading that I didn't get before. And it really helps me understand everything a lot better. And it helps me, especially with people who aren't really interested in Christianity, it's really cool for them to hear about like all that symbolism stuff that they never really knew about. You know, when they hear about Christianity, they think, oh, it's people just saying Jesus is great and that's about it. And they don't get to hear about all the crazy cosmic stuff that's happening in it. So I like to present that to people as well.
That's really cool. So do you go to church?
I have a couple times. My newly adopted grandmother has gotten fed up with our old church, so I've been going with her to another Catholic church for a few days. It's a little difficult though, because I work at a food store on a part-time schedule, so it's kind of all over the place. I can't make every Sunday like I should, or Saturday night. I'm not sure which it is, but I try to go when I can. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great to see your face, Andreas. Now every time I check 5 minutes after I post a video, I'll know who's competing for the gold medal. Well, thank you, Andrew. That's really helpful. It is so helpful to me to hear your stories and to hear just what you're struggling with and what's helpful, and that's just
thank you.
That's just tremendously helpful. We lost the thoughtful journey, the thought journey. So I noticed Thought Journey was in here, but he.
Oh, Thought Journey. I thought you were talking about like some thoughtful journey I'm on. I got confused.
No, Thought Journey. Thought Journey was in the room, and he dipped out.
Yeah, he was just here.
Yeah, he was, and I know I saw that he had come into the Discord server recently, and I read some of the stuff, the conversation that he was doing. So,
he's had some very interesting thoughts as well. It's very interesting. He and Voth have come in and said a lot of really interesting stuff that is cool to hear.
Yeah, and that's what's it's really so amazing how people can drop in and just kind of stir the pot all over again.
That's right. Yeah. Everyone has to throw their ideas into the mix again. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
Well, it's not even like, oh, sorry. What was that?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, something I hear all the time, which I think is pretty much a given in our society, is that people say, isn't it great that we can have a conversation with each other and not like be at each other's necks? And I think for the most part, we can usually do that. But the thing with our Discord here is not only can we have a conversation together and not be at each other's necks, but we have so much to offer that's different from each other that we actually give, rather than just saying nothing and being happy with that we're not killing each other over saying nothing. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
No, and that's what's really amazing. Okay, Thought Journey is back.
Okay, I'll let him talk if he gets in.
All right. Does he have his sound figured out? He doesn't show muted. Oh, we've
For
got
me,
two of
when
them
I
now.
first, does it
He's
work? For when I
multiplying.
first joined.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Okay.
Oh, there we hear you.
Hello.
Quite a bit of reverb, but go for it.
Sorry. Did you have a question for me?
Oh, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you're willing.
Oh, okay. Born and raised in Northwest Arkansas. So as you can imagine, there's not too many intellectual people around here that you can converse with. So then that's a logical question of how did I get to Discord? Well, you guys know who Voss is on Discord?
Yep.
Okay, well, we've been friends for a few years on Twitter, and he just said, hey, have you seen this video? And I was like, well, no, I haven't. And then I come check out the video, and then he's like, oh, hey, by the way, he has a Discord server. I'm like, well, no crap. So I have to go check that out now. And it's just been whirlwind. I would say I enjoy the conversations I have with people on there for sure.
Good, good. What video did he send you?
I can't even remember. Who were you having a conversation with? Oh, Andrea with the bangs. Yes.
Oh, Andrea with the
Okay.
bangs. Yes, that was a good conversation.
Oh my God, yes, it was. Absolutely.
I was going to send her a note and see if she'd let me post it on my channel, because I think more people would probably enjoy the channel, and if you have a little channel, it's hard to get your video out there.
Yeah, that's true. Well, see, it spoke to me even as an atheist. Some of the things you guys said just really spoke to me. And I think one thing that got to me the most is when you said the Bible was written for us.
For us, but not to us. Oop, we lost him.
There's things that are the law, there's the spirit of the law. So why does that exist? It's not just that the law is there, but it's why does it exist?
Mm-hmm.
So I found that part really, really interesting, and I wish you guys could have dug into that a little bit more. But I understand that conversations are what they are.
Maybe you and I should talk sometime. That sounds like an interesting angle to pursue.
I mean, sure, whenever you have time.
This is just a problem. There's too many interesting people and too many interesting ideas.
Hey, there's no time like the present. Let's do it. Go for it.
All right, you're gonna have to so remake your point. What's your first? Oh, Peter. I'm trying to get. So you broke up the last time. So why don't you state it again about the spirit of the law?
Well, I think there's the law that exists, but then there's the spirit of it. Like, why do you follow that law? And part of the reason that I left the faith is I was Southern Baptist, went to seminary, did all the things I'm supposed to do. And yet, when I question, like, well, why do we do this? Well, because God said so. Okay, great. Other than that, why? So I think there's something that's underneath because God said so that we can get, in a modern sense, of why you follow that law.
So something, I was just reading this thing that I had quoted in my last video. I'm trying to work on another video on progressive evangelicalism, and I actually recorded something yesterday that I'm not going to post and it's on the Bible, and it very much deals with what you're talking about, because there's something underneath. What is that underneathness? And how do we know it even if we're confused about what's on top?
Right, and that's the thing I've been trying to get to. But like I said, it's hard because I grew up Southern Baptist, and you don't get to question it. There's just no questioning. It's God said it, that's it. And it's
Well,
like, yeah, but why did
and what's interesting is that there's this, see, I didn't really grow up with a terribly authoritarian Christianity. And when I look at a lot of people who have defected from fairly authoritarian Christianities, the authoritarian nature of it seems to be very problematic, but they don't necessarily, when they leave it, leave the authoritarianness, because they take that with them to their new belief system.
Yeah, and that is a problem. That's why the most devout atheists you'll ever find are people that used to be Christian.
That's right.
It's just, they believe that so ardently, you're not going to get them out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
What's his name there? Iron, that believes that, narratives are bad. We just had a whole conversation on that, but that's for another time.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay quiet here.
Wow. I have 15 minutes left. But that was really interesting. Boy, wow. That's a really great observation.
So, for the record, I'm not from a religious background, so can't blame it on that.
So our last 15 minutes, anybody have any questions that you'd like to pose to me or the group?
Well, yeah, I do have a point, because you pissed me off a little bit.
Me or
yeah,
Thought Journey?
you did,
Oh,
because
tell me about it.
you were doing this teasing or like poking at Brad, and I actually wrote you a whole letter with where I was like trying to explain how we should come from a gracious perspective when we approach people from different perspective to support
Who was I poking at?
Brad Weinstein. And
oh yeah, okay.
So I was feeling that with what you were doing, right? Even if your objections are valid, the way you bring them and the way you construct the narrative around it is toxic, and it's pushing people who might be similarly minded away. But I guess you kind of repaired it with your Twitter spat. so, but yeah, I really, when you try to generate positive conversation, I really think it's important to embrace the other person in his perspective, and try to find the common ground, as opposed to make a divisive thing, because you're creating the, what's it called? Well, the polarization. You're embracing the polarization as opposed to what we got in common. And yeah, so I wanted you to refocus in a positive direction.
Well, thank you. I think I do. What I've noticed in myself, I was much more critical of Vervaeke until we started talking with each other. And I think there's a psychological issue I have, that when I'm talking about ideas of people on a screen, I'm probably less gracious and more dismissive than when somewhere in my head something is more convinced that I'm talking to a real person.
Well, yeah, I do think that's a pitfall we all fall into, right? This is just a human tendency, and that's the point, that we need to be most conscious of ourselves and be most gracious as possible, so we can actually be spreading agape, because that's what I'm trying to embody on the server.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that, and I'll take that to heart. I'm hoping. I don't know if Brett and I will have a talk. Maybe I'm sure it's not necessarily nice to have some random pastor on in California making videos about your ideas that aren't necessarily celebrative. But I'll keep that in mind. So thank you.
Well, so I'm gonna also enlighten the positive side, because I do think it was a good idea to poke the bear a little bit and get the attention that way. So I'll grant you the bonus points for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe we need a narrative about why Brett Feinstein was wrong.
He's poking at iron root.
Yes,
We actually had a great conversation over those few hours. I mean, we really did.
Interesting. I was just reading, Michael had just written, anyone read the new David Bentley Hart book? I didn't know that he had a new one out.
Is it called That All May Be Saved, or And All Shall Be Saved, or something like that? It's a Universalist book.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
I haven't read it yet either. I was just curious. It seems like he's been on a lot of podcasts lately promoting it, so I was just curious if anybody had actually read the book.
How long is it? He can write some really long books. 232 pages, not bad. Interesting. I haven't followed him closely lately. Oh, looks like he's got some interesting chapters. Who is God? Moral meaning of creation ex nihilo. What is judgment? Reflection on biblical eschatology. What is a person? Reflection on divine image. What is freedom? Reflection on the rational will. Interesting. So, well, I bet you it's interesting. Framing the question, doubting the answers. Yeah, it's well that the question of eternal perdition is an interesting one. There's a lot of big questions like that.
So I have a question for you, Mr. Vanderclay, if you don't mind. I don't
Absolutely.
know if you guys are done with that last conversation there. I don't have my camera on right now because I'm in a sauna.
Okay.
So, but I was wondering, so as a pastor, I was wondering what you might do with people who aren't necessarily religious, but you want to help out anyways. Because I have a lot of people around me who I see think things or are following ways of life that might be hurting them, and I don't really know what to do to help them. Maybe help them where they're at and not necessarily where I'm at, but I was wondering what you thought about that.
That's a constant thing, and I think often helpfulness follows the capacity of the relationship to bear truth. So, and you gain credibility in a relationship by being with them, serving them, being a friend, and question, it's my experience that advice is only as valuable as a person's capacity to receive it and act on it.
Right.
So
Okay.
what that means is a lot. And when I say a lot, I can mean years and decades. A lot of being there until something arises that the person themselves turns to you and says, basically opens up the conversation. Because nagging usually doesn't work.
Right. Okay. That actually really helps me, because I've had a lot of conversations recently with people who I didn't think was even necessarily offensive, but they find very offensive in some way. And suddenly I lost like a lot of relationships with people I used to know in high school and stuff like that because of things that I've learned recently that I figured they could benefit from, but apparently at this time cannot. So yeah, I figured I would be doing something wrong if maybe I wasn't telling them what I've learned from my perspective. But I see from what you're saying that really, if the only way to really help them maybe is to go along with them, like you said, be a friend.
Yeah. It's the old, it sounds so trite about being the change, and that is kind of a trite saying, but there's a ton of truth in it, in that if people see something in you that they want bad enough to open themselves to your influence, they will do it. But it's very interesting at the beginning of the book of Acts, when the disciples come out with their question, which makes, now will you restore the kingdom to Israel? And Jesus completely sidesteps the question and says, you will be my witnesses. And that witness, we tend to forefront, well, we're going to tell people what to do. In my experience as a pastor, that just does not work.
Right.
It's a little easier on YouTube because people can turn you off.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it's also easier because people know what you're about and they can go to you if they want something to do with that.
Right. But in the context of a personal relationship, if you get pushy with advice, especially in our current cultural condition, you're going to get a lot of pushback.
Right. Okay.
So I had this topic in a conversation with Torjuni today. The way you get people to accept something is to let them articulate it themselves. So, and they're not gonna integrate information if you're just supplying them with ideas, because they need to embody them. So, if you can get them to ask the right questions, then they can articulate their own answers, and then that's how you get them there.
Right. You never give them advice because that makes them weak and stupid, and then they come back to you for more advice. You question them until they come to a conclusion that they think is right, and then they go implement it.
Yep.
Right. That reminds me of that one video I saw with Jordan Peterson where he says something along the lines of, you should let someone else help themselves, because otherwise you steal that away from them and they can't help themselves after that.
Yep.
When he said that, I thought, God, that's how I treat my children. That's how I treat my marriage. I never give them advice, even when they ask for it. I say, well, why do you think I'm right and you're wrong?
Yep.
And I just question them until they get to the point where they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go try this. Yep. Okay, go give it a shot. See how it works.
Yep. Yep.
That's a good idea.
Yep. And it's also, one of the things that I also learned as a pastor was the rare moments when people come up to me and say, Pastor, that really changed my life. Well, what changed your life? And then they'll tell me something that sometimes I didn't say, and sometimes I never would say. And what I learned was it wasn't what I was telling them. It was just like Peter had just said, it was something that they were working out in their own head, and something I said just sort of touched on it, and it kind of pushed them over the edge, and might have been right, might have been wrong, but you know, and so then I'll do things that, you know, Iron Root isn't alone. I take a lot of people off. You know, people will come up to me and say things like, Pastor, I think you really need to be very direct in telling us what to do. And so I'll say, oh, that's the way you would like me to treat everyone else. Yes. Would you like me to treat you that way? Well, of course. And then I'll tell them something, and then they'll march away angry. I've done that so many times, and it takes people a few years usually to figure it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's hard to figure out that what you say you want and what you actually want are two different things.
Yep.
Right.
And Andrew, you being 21 means you haven't had that many years of relationships with people. It feels like a long time because you're young, but you know, when you think decades, you've only had 2 of them. And it takes people a long time to change if they do it all.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was some very extremely helpful answers for me. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Anything else? Last couple of minutes, and then I got a jet.
This may not be more of like a really general, just a general question anyway. Because I know you're a Calvinist, so in that case you're kind of like a double Augustinian in a sense, is the best way of putting it. So you do have a very tragic view of human nature. So again, I was just wondering if you've ever actually read any Thomas Sowell.
No, I haven't. But
because there's only one book I'd recommend on that topic itself, which is called The Conflict of Visions. Which is, it's mainly he's talking about this model he has between 2 visions of the constrained vision and the unconstrained vision of human nature, or another way of calling it in later books was tragic and utopic. And I was reading this, I only read it about a week before I started reading The Righteous Mind, because then I noticed it was like I could see some parallels, not in the what's the best word? Not in that what one would generate the other. It's just there's more of a correlation between the 2 views, because I noticed that a lot of like traditional thinking generally is more of that tragic view of human nature. We're all flawed and that general thing. While like I want to say left wing, but left wing is more like it's the circumstances. People can rise up and they can perfect themselves to the better of that and stuff like that. It was kind of a really good book. It's like, okay, this explains a hell of a lot of why people think the way they do and they act out the way they do, because they assume humans are a certain thing. And it was like a kind of a bit of a revelation to me. I was like, okay, that explains a lot, because why I know people why I was like, but people are flawed. Of course they are, but not everyone thinks that way. I was just wondering anyway. It was a wonderful model, and it explains a hell of a lot, like from politics to religion to quite a lot of how you view the world about different people. So yeah, it's a good book, and it also explains how a lot like progressives as well. I'd also recommend reading about the history of progressivism, because it derives from American Puritanism.
Yeah.
Directly from the 1880s. I have the book on the progressive era here.
Well, come back to that book. What was that? Because I was just doing a lot of thinking about that today.
No, so this is actually it's from an economist. It's called The Progressive Era. This book came out about 2 years ago.
Who's it by?
Murray Rothbard. He is a probably controversial economist in the fact that he was an anarcho-capitalist, but he's a very good economic historian, and it was a very, very good book when I read it. He's been dead since 1995, but he's writing more books that are like this thick. He wrote a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, let's put it that way. And it was a really good thing, like telling all the history and stuff. And he was having he kind of split it into, I read this book about over a year ago anyway, but it was, he split, because he said America has kind of always had 2 cultures. And he kind of split them up into, I think, can't remember, one word was liturgical, and the other one, I think it was Puritan. and they always had like they were quite distinct in their religious views and also in their political views as well, and philosophical views. Like the Puritan ones were like very, this is how you do things, and the very things, and like the liturgical ones are usually more Catholic or Anglican in their views, and very laissez-faire in their politics as well. Like they were always like for free markets, so like until like beginning of the 20th century when it kind of all went a bit weird. But it was like he was kind of explaining like, okay, it's kind of these different, again, it was this mapping of the same visions things as well. I was like, that's so bizarre. Like, so this kind of thing kind of pops out. I'm not trying to say there's two things clearly. You can have a spectrum, but it was a very interesting kind of thing. So I was kind of reading the progressivism, like, and the American progressivism. If you read the John Era, oh my God, was it horrific? Like the views they think, like take Woodrow Wilson for example.
Oh yeah,
he thought he was pretty much sent by God to save the world and cleanse the world. Whew, that takes some evil. That's the best way of putting it. And there's some other things he was talking about and stuff like all the progressives like, oh, they were against monopolies and everything. And like, no, they were for their particular monopolies and all their stuff. Like, I was like, oh, wow. It's like this, oh, they were for eugenics and all the, like, because it's quite pure and you have to, it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
No wonder, and sorry, we had to give you to Americas. We kicked them out after the Civil War, when they won, by the way. They won the Civil War.
Yeah.
And then we reinstated the monarchy, even though it wasn't, don't get confused. Charles II, one of my favorite kings, because he literally did nothing. Just partied all day. Brilliant guy.
Well, your point, your point about the Puritans, I mean, because they were utopians.
Oh yeah, oh yes.
I had that conversation with the guy from New Haven. They were serious about, we are going to set up the kingdom of God here.
Yeah.
And they were Calvinists. They were utopians.
Yeah.
They were very serious about
Which is a contradiction in my opinion, but that's a different thing. That's people. That's
people. That's right.
I know it very well myself. Like I've got some, let's put it that way, I've got to know it myself well. But yeah, it's like, wait, how can you be a Calvinist, which is kind of double Augustinian, and be a utopist? What?
Yeah,
I don't, it's like...
If you're God's chosen instrument to do it...
Well, yes, of course.
There you go. But that runs into some problems.
But then you have the idea of, oh, he's chosen you to do it, of course, and then he's elected you to do this, and everyone else is, no, they're all the bad sinners, they won't do it.
That's right.
It's that thinking, and it's just, but it's so bizarre to me. I was just wondering if you didn't know about the history, because it's so relevant nowadays. It is a religion. Like progressivism is Puritanism without God.
Yes.
It acts exactly like it, which is so bizarre to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, Conflict of Visions, I highly recommend that book. Sorry.
Okay.
You're forgetting the narcissism.
Well, yeah, it is a narcissism. I'm not forgetting it. It's just, I do think it's kind of like, it's the view of human nature, and then you're building up from that. It's the poking at your axioms. It's what it branches up, and they think they're bringing down to do the thingy fingers. It's just weird.
No, the Thomas Sowell book I've never read, but a lot of people have brought it to me, and
I was a huge fan of Thomas. I was recently discovered it. Thomas Sowell is one person actually. A few months before, I was getting, oh wow, I love it. I was getting really excited about. I just discovered economics randomly one day. That's a weird story. Short answer is, I went to school years before that. I lost £20 to my chemistry teacher. He says, "I bet you can't tell who's the back on the £20 note," and I didn't know. And I lost £20 to him. So I remembered it's Adam Smith, the economist.
Yeah.
And I thought one day, I'll probably read his book. Didn't realize he wrote many. And I ordered them one night. And then I accidentally discovered Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell on that same night. And I was watching videos until about 4 o'clock in the morning. That was a wow moment to me. But yeah, again, because there's a lot of things about Thomas Sowell. He's a very kind of, like a very much of an empiricist in the way he views the world. Like, okay, here's the facts. Now, there's some basic rules, like compared to what, at what cost, and what hard evidence have you got? That, like, they're really important rules. He's kind of the guy who reminded me, like, apply what you've learned from science and apply it to everything else. That was just kind of a revelation, to use that word, to me.
Thank you for
Yeah, it's
that,
fine. It's fine.
and thanks for the progressive era.
No. It's a bloody thick book. You can get the audio book for free. So.
Oh.
Yeah. It's kind of more of a collection of papers than a book.
Okay.
Because it was clearly, I don't think it was dead, so you can't really put it together very well.
Well, thank you all. I am
Yeah.
going to run, but this was Jeff's. We have Jeff to thank for this. He said, you talked about this. Why don't you do it? And I looked at my calendar. I don't have to preach on Sunday, so I thought I could probably do it. I could probably do this on Friday when I'm usually hurriedly finishing my sermon and recording my rough draft. So no rough draft for Sunday this week. But there's Jeff.
Well, you're very welcome, everyone.
And what I am so delighted by the Discord and the randos and all of this is that I haven't done it. I've done some things, but what's been a joy is seeing what everyone else has done. And I'm not providing the conversation and the arguments on the channel. You are, and I think that's just so much better than I could ever do. So thank you all, and have a good evening or a good night. It's getting pretty late for you folks and the Shelley and Bill. So
it's 1:10. Wow.
And Andreas. All right. So have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Lovely seeing you in the face.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Also need to tell Andreas to go to bed.
Yes, I know.